Hey folks, I have read your practicum log number 2 as well as your servant leadership sub-themed reflection exercise and provided feedback for both of those assignments. As a reminder, your feedback for your practicum log is going to be in Typhon. It is so important that you are following this feedback and making intentional efforts to improve your outcomes by integrating that feedback. Practicum log number 3 should reflect progression in how effective you are in explaining how your activities in the practicum experience align with the ANA scope and standards and how they are relevant to your role as a nurse administrator. Be sure that you read that feedback early on and that you reach out with questions sooner rather than later. Your last log is due next Friday, so begin to anticipate the time commitment that it's going to be that's necessary to wrap that up. As a reminder, your goals and objectives that you developed in 623 are guiding your progression towards completion of these goals and objectives. It is expected that by the time you get to 626 that you have accomplished these goals and objectives. If you're not intentional about planning your practicum time and strategically managing your progression, you're going to wind up in your last practicum course and have kind of a panic moment of, I've lost track of things. I've not anticipated completing all of these, and I haven't been really watching how my time is spent. So do not wait until the last minute to begin to be thoughtful about how you plan your time, and work with your preceptor and make sure, when you meet with them, that you're routinely talking about your goals and objectives and that you're making plans to move forward with progression. From the log standpoint, there was no major theme. I think everything was in pretty good shape. Your reflective exercises, this paper to me is one of the assignments that when I get to read, when I'm done, I'm often pretty emotional. I feel like there's so many personal stories from your practice, from your life experience, from your professional experience that really go into explaining how you have been a servant in your role as a professional nurse. From the moments of where someone has given birth or someone has lost a loved one, whether it be an elderly person or a child, whether someone's been neglected or abused, or someone is facing a frightening diagnosis. There were so many beautiful examples of where you were fully present in the moment, being the hands and feet of Christ. We forget that nurses are very often, we get a front row seat to some of the saddest moments, the most stressful moments in a patient's life. Even the really good moments. Think about the birth of a healthy child. Nurses are in the front row for that. But the change in a family system, the stress of a newborn, the unknowns of motherhood and fatherhood, all of those are stressors. And we are in a perfect place to witness, to love, to support in a Christian manner. And it was so beautiful to read so many of your stories about how you were present in someone's really dark time, and how you served them in unique ways, specific to O'Brien's sub-themes with servant leadership. How beautiful it was. So many great patient examples. Your classmate Todd did a really nice job of summarizing this in his conclusion. Todd wrote, as Christian nurses, we should focus on serving the needs of our patients in both physical and spiritual manners. Listening with the heart, crossing over, the wounded healer, and embracing a higher purpose are all servant leadership behaviors that we must possess as nurses. Listening, empowering, and earning trust from patients we care for is vital and can help improve recovery by decreasing stress and anxiety from the patient and their families. I love the fact that Todd pointed out that when we are serving others, that we do more than serve their practical needs of providing food or nourishment or IV fluids or wound care. Those are the tasks we do. The softer skills, the servant skills, the being fully present in the moment, actively listening, being empathetic, sharing our own journey in a therapeutic way, all of those things fully support the patient's emotional and spiritual well-being in a time that it's most needed. So I appreciate so many of you talking about, how your presence and your efforts really alleviated stress. And we know from a healthcare standpoint, from a nursing standpoint, that stress can really have a negative impact on the healing process. So when we're at our best and we are serving others, and we're being the hands and feet of Christ, we are supporting everyone's psychosocial domain, but we're also being God's hands and feet at the bedside and in someone's life. So I appreciate Todd's thoughtfulness in kind of wrapping this up. My hope is that as you wandered through kind of your career and gave examples of when you were with patients and what those experiences were like, that you took a few moments and you reflected back on the wonderful things you've done as a professional nurse. I was certainly very blessed by reading these papers and getting to know a different side of you. Something that came to me as I was reading these papers is how many of you, especially in the wounded healing section, how many of you are currently dealing with real grief, either from health issues or loss, missing a family member that's passed away, and how that sorrow and distress has helped make you a stronger nurse. And I think that's so unique that you can see it that way. Many people, nurses and every other profession, when we face our own struggles, we fold inward. We're not capable of using those experiences in our own sadness to reach others and be empathetic. So I was really impressed with how effective you all were in trying to do that. And often, we forget in the busyness of our lives that we don't know everybody's story. And as your academic professor, I don't know you personally. So to read so many of you that are engaged in a graduate program and are working and are moms and dads and fur baby owners, and that you're really grieving, really touched my heart. Know that I'm thinking about you and I'm praying for you in this season of your life. And was so grateful that you were willing to share those things transparently in an appropriate way related to your academic experiences. Moving on to next week. Next week you have a discussion board that's a comparison of the certification that ANCC and the ACHE offers. Guys, this is meant to be low-hanging fruit. It is to give you a little bit of breathing space so that you can do a really good job on week 8. Week 8 is your analysis of your spiritual philosophies paper, and you were taking Porter O'Grady and Malik's 10 Spiritual Rules of the Road and O'Brien's Nurse Servant Leader behavioral themes, and you're comparing and contrasting them. And folks, before you start comparing and contrasting, my encouragement is that as you really spend time reading in detail these 2 tenets and principles, I'm going to encourage you. I'm a visual person, so I would take 2 blank sheets of paper and I would jot down all of those tenets and principles, and I'd really spend some time thinking, either circling or drawing lines or creating some sort of visual representation of how things overlap thematically and relate to one another, as well as identifying the things that are very dissimilar. What are the themes in one group that are not represented in the other group, and how is that relevant? I'm going to encourage you not to spend 4, 5, 6 pages summarizing the themes and the tenets. It's not necessary, nor is that the assignment. A brief overview of what they are and what they mean, that's great, but if you have wandered into multiple pages of telling me what's in the textbook and summarizing all of these, you're going to, your paper's going to get unwieldy. You're going to exceed your paper count, and you're going to give information that's really not necessary. If you are doing an effective analysis of these tenets and principles, you're going to inevitably tell me what all of those things are, what all of those tenets and principles are as you do your analysis. So doing an introduction, detailing every single one of them with detail is not necessary. Add that in your analysis so that you can write concisely. It is important to remember that I think the finding similarities is a little bit easier. So spend some time making sure you're thinking about how things are dissimilar. Now, know that you're not going to touch on every single one of these, but you should have a good chunk of similarities and a good chunk of differences and be able to do a pretty good analysis. Remember, this paper is worth, I think it's 200. Yeah, it's 200 points. So the level of effort, the level of scholarly support, the level of professional writing needs to reflect an assignment that's 200 points. So be very intentional as you develop this paper. From an APA standpoint, you need to make sure that you have scholarly references. The assignment requires 8 to 10 scholarly references. I want to encourage you to remember that scholarly references come from peer-reviewed journals that have been published in the last 5 years. They're not likely to be websites or things that are available in open access journals. These are peer reviewed. You want to avoid your textbooks. You can use those Porter O'Grady and Mallet and O'Brien's books as the underpinning, but they do not count as part of your 8 to 10 references. So just know that 8 to 10 is above your textbooks from a support standpoint. This paper, because of the complexity of it, you should be putting in level 1, level 2, and level 3 headings at a minimum. Depending on if you get a little bit more granular, adding level 4 may be helpful. If you turn this paper in with nothing but level 1 headings or no level headings, that's going to be reflected in your writing part of your rubric. At this point, you've only got a handful of courses left, so you should really be very fluid with using level headings appropriately to organize your writing and to guide your reader. It's not an optional part of APA. So make sure that if you have questions as you go through this, know that the Ask the Professor link is great for those logistics of who, what, where, when, how kinds of questions. Anything specific to your own experience, send me an email. I'm happy to chat with you and provide guidance if needed specific to your own grade or your own experience. Tomorrow is July 4th. I hope that wherever you are safe, that you have some plans for a little bit of downtime if possible. To enjoy, well, for us it's 94 degrees here in Roanoke and it's very humid, so I will not be going outside. Wherever you are, I hope you enjoy some time off. I know with the pace that you're keeping, taking a deep breath every once in a while is necessary. And next week is going to be a busy week. You've got lots of moving parts that are due before Friday, so be sure that you're taking care of yourself, at least intermittently, as you move through these last few weeks of the course. I hope you guys have a great week. Be in touch with questions. Take care.